A mere decade into its run, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has already become one of the most successful film franchises of all time. Since studio president Kevin Feige took over the reins in 2007, the series has produced one hit after another. It seems as if Marvel has managed to develop the ultimate storytelling formula in film, that despite some of the most prominent filmmakers of our time not even considering the Marvel films to be cinema.
Theaters were almost like amusement parks in a sense, so these films now, I think, are more like theme rides.
Scorsese underlines a central issue. Despite the MCU's undeniable success, the franchise has received plenty of criticism for its heavily serialized nature. You want to enjoy Endgame, you have to watch Infinity War first. But wait, what's this place they're at? Watch Black Panther. In many ways, the franchise resembles TV more than a traditional film series. Generally speaking, franchises tend to feature one main storyline with the same recurring characters along with maybe one spin-off, not dozens. The Marvel films are TV, not just from the point of view of the audience, but the producers as well. Marvel is infamous for putting overall narrative above the vision of any individual filmmaker, resulting in breakups such as the one they had with Edgar Wright over Ant-Man, a film that the director had reportedly been developing for years. In their most recent exploits, Marvel seems to have favored directors with experience in TV rather than film. The Russo brothers, who directed 2 Captain America films as well as Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, were hired based on their work on the sitcom Community. Hiring TV directors to handle some of the biggest franchises in history is an interesting choice to say the least, but it does make a whole lot of sense if you compare the nature of TV production to that of film. It's a lot more collaborative and efficient, both qualities of extreme importance for Marvel. TV has its fingerprints all over Marvel's golden formula, and yet the studio has never done an official MCU TV show until WandaVision debuted on Disney+. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is set in the same universe as the movies but doesn't correspond with them at all. No notable plot element from that show has ever migrated over to the films. The Netflix shows, on the other hand, seem to start out as canon with their numerous references, but the more time has passed, the more reluctant Feige has seemingly become of including them. But from the very beginning of WandaVision, it's apparent that the show is as Marvel as it gets. From familiar characters to Feige as its executive producer, no one could mistake it for anything else. And yet, in comparing it to the movies, something about it just feels off. It seems that whereas the movies often suffer from being too much like TV, the TV on the other hand suffers from trying to be too much like the movies. A little background on that. For decades, TV shows have been run by a single writer/executive who essentially oversees the entire production of the show. They're in charge of the creative direction as well as day-to-day production issues such as casting. That person is called the showrunner. Television has been the writer's medium for about as long as it's been around. David Chase was the face of The Sopranos in the early 2000s, and Vince Gilligan the de facto leader of Breaking Bad throughout its entire run. And no one could forget about these guys. But upon introducing the creative crew for The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Feige didn't refer to the show's would-be runner Malcolm Spellman as showrunner, but rather head writer. There's an entire Variety article on the issue that I'll link below, but in short, this signifies a very profound change in the way that Marvel has decided to run its TV department. As Falcon and the Winter Soldier director Kerry Coughlin put it, Marvel is taking the features model. Final word is given to the director and executives, with the writers simply executing tasks per their orders. It's unprecedented. The move is not, of course, entirely void of logic. Marvel is comfortable with its formula because it's been proven time and time again. They never deviate from it. Even Black Panther, in all its brilliance, falls neatly into the formula with its single-issue villain and CGI smash third act. But TV is different. Instead of quality, it's about consistency. Instead of plot, it's about characters. And for both of those things, you need the showrunner. From the very beginning, Wanda is uncomfortable with its episodic structure. Its take on TV is satirical, not sincere. There's not a single episode that's just Wanda. It's all either a parody of a period sitcom or this. No real story happens during the sitcom episodes, and if it does, it's usually in the shape of "that's not supposed to happen" rather than an original plot point within the narrative itself. It's an aspect that, in my opinion, holds Wanda back both technically and narratively. The show is constrained by its desire to be something that it's clearly not. The plot only kicks into gear when a character manages to break outside of the hex, when, interestingly enough, the aspect ratio also switches back to that utilized by the films. The unique structure of the show makes this the most apparent in Wanda, but Falcon and the Winter Soldier suffers from similar issues as well. Discarded plot lines, underdeveloped characters, full episodes of filler, although it does have this. Both of these shows reek of 2 hours desperate to last for 6. Film productions thinking of themselves as TV shows, and most of that can be attributed to the lack of a showrunner. the lack of a single unified voice that would tie up all the loose ends. Feige's reluctance to hand over that control is understandable, but by not doing so, he's hurting some of these shows more than he's helping them. An unnamed executive interview for the Variety article stated that when it comes to recruiting top-shelf writing talent, Marvel's technique is bound to bite them in the ass at some point. It's simply impossible for a head writer to replace the job of a showrunner. Even the Marvel Cinematic Universe has a showrunner in Kevin Feige. Just imagine if all of the 23 films would be run by a single writer danced around by executives. Any other model is simply not sustainable. And yet, Marvel keeps insisting that the role of a showrunner is interchangeable with that of a writer. They've even hired the writers of the first 3 MCU TV shows to pen some of the upcoming films. Marvel has always used its writers as tools more than creatives. With decades worth of source material to rely on, the writer's job was never to innovate as much as to just simply translate the comics into film. The Marvel formula has always been about efficiency more than innovation. But television requires more. It requires a focus on character that's more than just a contained arc. It requires an understanding of story that relies on more than cliffhangers and fan speculation. Marvel struck gold by frameworking its movies as an ongoing TV show with Feige as their showrunner. But now, it's far past time that it gave someone else the keys to run their own.